Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Wednesday Palaver. This Wednesday, we are looking at a very interesting topic. We are going to be looking at the 2020 elections and the right of free expression. We are going to be looking at this topic because many things have happened over the last couple of weeks. The invitation to Bernard Mona to report at the police station, the expressions by political party leaders, warning of violence and so on. Indeed, there's a new phenomena in our country. Party activists sit on radio and television and order the police to arrest their opponents, and they are very quickly arrested and so on. We're going to try to answer the question, what is happening? What is the meaning of all of this? Where is this leading Ghana's democratic experiment? As you do know, we meet Wednesday evenings in the studio with a studio audience because we are no longer able to meet at the Freedom Center under the current COVID conditions. So we meet in the studio and we have a guest. And the guest speaks to us for 20 to 30 minutes, and thereafter we take questions and comments from Facebook, we take questions and comments from WhatsApp, we take questions and comments from our regular telephone lines and so on. And then our guest will respond to some of these. And then after that, we come to the studio for the studio audience to participate in these conversations. As you do know, for those of you at home who want to participate in this forum, please call the producers on the telephone line which is provided on the screen, and they will make arrangements for you to participate in this forum. This week we have a very, very special and distinguished guest, young parliamentarian who used to be the Deputy Minister for Education and currently is the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament. Very articulate young man, a man who started with us at the Freedom Center. He's played several roles in this country, was involved in struggles all over, was once the president of the National Union of Ghana Students, and so on. It is our pleasure to welcome to the podium Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. Honorable, the microphone is
yours. Thank you very much, Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. Comrades and friends, let me express my very deep appreciation to the organizers of Wednesday Palaver for doing me such a great honor to join you today to discuss a very important topic, Election 2020 and the right to free expression. A very fundamental topic relating to the democracy that we have all committed to. How do we move our country forward? The right to free expression, the right to associate as guaranteed in the 1992 Constitution, specifically Chapter 5. We are proud as a country to have a whole chapter of our Constitution dedicated to the protection and preservation of fundamental freedoms and human rights. So to that extent that this discussion is about human rights, I would want us to rise and observe a minute's silence in honor of our brother George Floyd, who was brutally killed in Minnesota in the United States of America, and also Ghanaians who have been killed like Ahmed Hussein Swale, that investigative journalist, whose killers have still not been apprehended. My colleague, former member of parliament, the Honorable J.B. Dankwa, who belongs to the New Patriotic Party, whose assassins have still not been apprehended, and he still has not found justice. And all our fallen heroes and comrades who have had their life snuffed out of them, and justice has still not been won. Considering that today is a Human Rights Day, and that is our discussion, I think it is only proper for us to rise and observe a minute silence in honor of all these people. May their souls rest in perfect peace, and may justice be secured finally. Please take your seats. So, comrades and friends, we all know that when we talk about free speech and free expression, it comes with the very essence of human existence. They are rights that nobody gives to you. You are born with them. And that is why they are described as fundamental human rights. That is why they are described as natural rights, basic rights. My right to speak out and to hold beliefs, views, opinions about everything I so desire, without that threatening my existence. And that should not warrant anybody to come after me because I hold those views and I express those views freely. So human rights make us human beings. That is what differentiates between us and other living organisms. So it is inalienable. It is inseparable. It is intrinsic to our very existence. And it is not something that is given to us as a gift. Not at all. It is not based on somebody's benevolence that you have been good as citizens, I like your face, or I like what you said this morning, and so I give you the right to speak. Not at all. So we must, ab initio, understand what we are discussing and what we are talking about and how important this topic is. Very, 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 very crucial. You are not complete as a human being if you do not have the right to express yourself and to speak freely, to associate freely, and to hold views that you want to hold. That acknowledged, the human race has always struggled with enforcing these rights, protecting these rights, and guaranteeing these rights. There has always been oppressors who have vowed that they will not allow others to freely express themselves and to exist and to hold whatever view they are entitled to. And in history, many, many stories abound. We know what happened, for example, to the man who went against popular theory at the time and said that the world was flat. The world was round and not flat, as was held at the time against the popular theory. The popular theory at the time was that the world was so flat, and if you do not watch your steps, you could even tip off, fall off. You know what happened to him. He was killed. So there has always been intolerant forces who gang up against people who do not express the views that they hold dear. And we saw same during slavery, how those who resisted slavery were hounded and killed. Slavery itself was a fundamental violation of the rights of any people. We saw colonialism and how those who were opposed to colonialism were fought, were killed. People like Patrice Lumumba, killed in a very vicious way. Acid bath, body mutilated beyond recognition because he was fighting colonial imperialists. That is how vicious those who seek to suppress the rights of others to express themselves and to hold views that they are opposed to. That is how far they go. If you come to Ghana's political history, the democracy we enjoy today did not come on a silver platter. And today, I am deeply, deeply honored to be sharing this podium with Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who this country has not honored enough. Some of them laid down their lives for the democracy we enjoy today. Military juntas chasing them, imprisoning them, torturing them, but they persevered. They showed tremendous courage, and they said that we must return to multi-party democracy. The people must be given the right to choose leaders of their choice. So when our forebears have sacrificed, some died. Only a few weeks ago, the Kume Preko struggle was being celebrated, and we're reminded of the likes of Ahunu Ahonga, who laid down their lives. It is important that we do everything to protect this democracy, which was not won for us on a silver platter. It didn't take a walk in the park. If it had been left to some people, they would have preferred another kind of political system that alienates the masses and that prevents the people from making their own choices. So that is why, when we have gone on a trajectory since the first coup of 1966, 24 February, and the consistent struggle to defeat militarism and defeat military adventurers and return this country on a path of democracy, after several attempts, this has been, after 27 years, the longest democratic dispensation that we have had. But the democratic spirit and democratic fruits do not exist in perpetuity if we do nothing. We must constantly be on the lookout. There ought to be eternal vigilance. And we must always water the seeds of liberty. We must nurture those seeds And we must, through hard work and dedication, ensure that democracy is preserved and is protected. And that is why, ahead of the 2020 elections, as I narrow down on the theme for our engagement this evening, I am deeply, deeply worried about tendencies that are emerging, not in one sector, not in two sectors, not in three sectors, but all over the place. I am deeply, deeply worried. And I will be giving you some examples. What is the immediate trigger of this discussion is the unwarranted invitation of Mr. Bernard Mona, the chairman of the People's National Convention. Mr. Bernard Mona is warning about the need to avoid disputed elections, and that if we all cannot agree on what register to use and what is the justification for changing the register, especially when many analysts, including credible civil society organizations, even the 2018 United States Human Rights Report, of course, we will not go to the United States for human rights lessons, but that report said that there are genuine fears about possible voter suppression after considering the way and manner Madame Charlotte Osei was hounded out of office, even when a defective petition had been sent to the president. We are told the president is just supposed to be a conveyor belt. Yet, there was a scout for Madame Charlotte Osei's petitioners to return to the Jubilee House, or the Flagstaff House, which is the appropriate nomenclature, to sign the petition, which they had forgotten to sign. And then it was cross-checked. All the pages were inspected in detail to be sure that the conveyor belt can now, after a long pause, work again and convey the petition. So many analysts are saying that, look, we do not need a new voters register. A register that has served us well, produced the current president, who won with close to 1 million votes. Now the way the New Patriotic Party is even conducting itself and how they are poo-pooing the register, one is beginning to wonder if even they won the elections legitimately, because they are questioning their own legitimacy by their conduct. And when you listen to their leading members, and at the least provocation in their internal fracas, they tell you the things they did. If they go to town, all hell will break loose. Recently, you heard the Honorable Minister for Local Government's opponent, Haji Alima Mohammed's opponent, seeking to reveal how the system was abused to get her elected into parliament and to get the New Patriotic Party the votes they received in that constituency. We've heard Mr. Kennedy Ejapon on countless occasions talk about how if he is pushed any further, he will spill the beans and reveal how they won the 2016 elections. One is beginning to wonder if we shouldn't give credence to what may have been done in 2016. But beyond that, this is a register that has delivered the creation of new regions. You called it a very popular, very credible process. A register that delivered local government representatives across the length and breadth of this country. So, how is it that all of a sudden, meanwhile, if you are a student of international democracy. Ghana is perhaps one of the very, very few countries where every now and then we want to compile a register. Meanwhile, Article 45 of our Constitution is very clear. The framers of our Constitution had envisaged that the Electoral Commission will compile a register only once, and then later on review it when people become 18 years and older. As a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee, we visited Serbia. I was with my chairman, the Honorable Anode Pre, and other committee members. And you can find out from them. The foreign minister decided to take us on a tour, the foreign minister of Serbia decided to take us on a tour of a number of Serbian companies who had interests in Africa. In one of those companies, the MD told us about how in a particular African country, notorious for opacity and undemocratic values, that how every 4 years they put together a new register and they have put in a bid. And he said he couldn't understand, the managing director talking to us, Foreign Affairs Committee members, he couldn't understand how poor country, it takes so much money, hundreds of millions of dollars to compile these registers. And yet, every election cycle, that African country wants to compile a new register. But well, they want money, they want profit, they are not a charity. So they are hoping that they are bid. And that they have also read that Ghana too wants to compile a new register. So they will be also interested in that. We bowed down our head in shame. So it tells you that the reasons are not altruistic. There are other considerations. Procurement, political shenanigans, opportunity to suppress votes in our opponents, see how we can rig the eventual outcome of the elections. Most shocking. So when you have political activists raise concern about the threats, because when you are going into an election and you're not achieving consensus, the vast majority, all the polls are monitored, the Ghana Web poll, the poll by Major Online, GH1 and all of that, they have all said that Ghanaians, the vast majority of Ghanaians, are not in favor of a new register. And when genuine concerns are raised, I am a member of parliament for North Tongu, and I can confirm to you that in my constituency, when the NIA came to register, my constituents and the people of North Tongu, a lot of machines were not working, network challenges, many people could not get their cards. So I decided, as a member of parliament, though they called me and said, oh, we could create a special dispensation for you to, I said, no, you've not even registered 30% of my people. How will I look? I will not be a responsible member of parliament if I take advantage of that VIP opportunity and get registered, get a card, when the vast majority of my people, more than 70%, don't have their NIA cards. So as I speak to you, I don't have an NIA card. And so it means that I am not eligible to be registered, even though I'm a member of parliament. And what we have done now is that birth certificates, which you use to obtain a passport, are not eligible. It's no longer a foundation document. And what we forget is that this is really speaking to citizenship, which is a right. So birth certificates are not accepted by the Electoral Commission, but they will accept passports. The birth certificates that gave you the passport will be accepted. But if you come with a birth certificate, it will not be accepted. Voter ID cards will not be accepted. So these are legitimate concerns that civil society organizations, the good people of our country, the National House of Chiefs, CODEO, CDD, IDEC, Imani, are all raising. So when a political activist and chairman of a political party wants that, look, let's be careful so that the 2020 election does not degenerate, you don't descend on him with the full might of the state and invite him to the police CID headquarters. He was not the only person. Major Boachijan, he raises mild concerns, very mild concerns, that look, I'm very experienced. I have seen the trajectory of this country. I have seen what has caused sparks. So be cautious. Let us avoid cataclysm. Let us avoid conflict. He is also descended heavily, full force of the state. Meanwhile, at that same time, Mr. Obribwahin, a leading member of the New Patriotic Party, wants that the registration that is about to begin, he has mobilized people, and anybody who attempts to disrupt the registration will be beaten up. And he is still all over the place, saying all kinds of things. So we cannot have two sets of rules. We cannot have a situation where the Ghana Police Service is subjected to such blatant abuse. It is not acceptable. We cannot build a country that way. Free expression is a right available to all Ghanaians. Article 21(1)(a) is very, very clear. It's available to all Ghanaians, not only MPP members. If Mr. Obribwahin, Abronye, and all of them can say the most terrible of things, make incendiary comments. You heard what Mr. Abronye said about former President Mahama as relates to the passing of Professor Mills. I don't want to dignify that comment. He's walking a free man. Very horrible comments. It had to take President Mahama himself, his lawyers, to ask the state to take some action. So I am deeply worried about the abuse of state power, the reckless manipulation of the Ghana Police Service to achieve political ends. And these are the things that undermine confidence in the Ghana Police Service. Look, there are many people in the Ghana Police Service who I respect very much. I mean, I travel a lot, always back and forth my constituency. They make the road safe. They put themselves in harm's way. All these checkpoints, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., whether it's raining, dusk to dawn, they are there. There are many, many hardworking, decent men and women in that service. But clearly, the time has come for us as a people to agitate for reforms in the Ghana Police Service. And I'm in full solidarity with the likes of ASP Agbojo and his other colleagues, like Kofi Boachi, who have called for reforms. And you saw what happened to them when they openly called for reforms. But we are in solidarity with them. The time has come for the Ghana Police Service to attain full independence and to be totally stripped off all these political control. This business of the vice president must chair the police council and is the president appointing IGP and all of that. Let's free the Ghana Police Service. Cut these apron strings and allow them can have an independent commission that takes care of their promotions and emergence, whoever becomes IGP. And politicians will just back off the Ghana Police Service. Whether NDC is in power, MPP is in power. So this manipulation must stop. I am also deeply worried about these creeping undemocratic tendencies against free speech, free expression. Entering other key sectors of our country. And I refer to what is happening to our Auditor General as we speak. Mr. Daniel Yaw-Domlevo has shown over the period that he is an independent man, fair-minded. He may have been appointed by President Mahama in President Mahama's last days in office, but he is so brutally fair and independent. He doesn't care whose ox is God. He must do his job. And he has been vocal. I have heard leading members, I've been on programs with them, leading members of New Patriotic Party say that what kind of Auditor General is this? They don't want another Auditor General who expresses himself. Why? When you become an Auditor General, you lose your fundamental human right of free expression. Which country? Which constitution? Is it the African Charter of Human Rights? Or the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights? Which charter, which treaty, which convention that Auditor Generals cannot speak their minds? So you saw a systematic orchestration to go after him. You saw MPP groups like AFAG descend on him, concoct stories, call for his resignation. And now you see senior minister who should be returning $1 million to the state. He is in court going after the Auditor General because he was too vocal an Auditor General. But for this Auditor General, as we speak, as I address you now, a group of former ministers and MPs, right from the President Kufuor era, will have taken away 29 million Ghana cedis of our money. But for that vocal, patriot, nationalist, saying that no, I don't see the basis, I don't see any documentation justifying the claim that there should be arrests for your ex gratia. And how come 8 years under President Mills, President Mahama, you didn't raise this? But your party is back to power, and as usual, they get a few people in the NDC, former appointees, who also think that there should be some basis for it. I salute the Auditor General for declining that, and I hope the Chief of Staff, who sought the Auditor General's advice, would not go ahead and make that payment. At a time when we are scrambling, our finance minister is virtually in Parliament every week, wherever he can find money to grab, that this economy is collapsing. Only last week you heard he was in Parliament to go against the 5% fiscal responsibility provisions to raid the Bank of Ghana 10 billion cedis he needs to keep this economy afloat. That if care is not taken, even salaries cannot be paid. You saw how they were bragging that Ghana received the largest share of the money that the IMF had made available to COVID-19 stricken countries. We got $1 billion. The people who said the money is here, we don't need to borrow, President Mahama was borrowing too much, and all of that. You saw the $100 million from the World Bank. The Stabilization Fund, $200 million taken out. So that tendency creeping into the audit service must be condemned. And Daniel Yadomlevo, like any Ghanaian, any citizen, must be allowed to express himself freely. This tendency has not ended in the audit service. I am again deeply worried about what is currently going on in our public universities. You may have heard that government has put together what they are calling the Public Universities Bill. And they have brought that bill to Parliament. It has been laid and presented to the Education Committee of Parliament. In that bill, clearly, academic freedom is under attack. There is such a vicious onslaught on the autonomy and the independence of our public universities. Meanwhile, Article 21 of our Constitution is very clear. Academic freedom is guaranteed. There is nothing wrong with the current state of public universities. Why will any president want to appoint a chancellor, want to have a majority on university councils? Why? So clearly, another assault on free speech, free expression, and the democratic tenets that we should all uphold. The University Council will be responsible for promoting lecturers. Can you imagine what will happen to a lecturer who appears before you probably next week, the next week edition of Wednesday Palaver, and comes to speak freely like I am doing, and is critical of the government, and this bill is passed, it becomes the Public Universities Act. Would that lecturer be promoted? And I heard Professor Akosua Ampofu, a very distinguished professor, say that already international partners of the universities are saying that they are going to pull out funds for research. They're going to pull out resources and back out of partnerships, of agreements, because they are not going to support puppet universities, universities which have been cowed, where lecturers and students can no longer think freely, research into whatever area, whether it's corruption at the Ministry of Education or at the presidency or wherever. This cannot continue. So you are seeing tentacles of oppression, of intimidation all over the place. I've talked about the political space. I've talked about the Ghana Audit Service, the public universities. Now let's come to the media. Already, Reporters Without Borders is deeply worried. We are declining on our rankings. Not too long ago, we were the freest country in Africa. Number one, per the 2018 rankings. We are at an all-time low. We have been overtaken by countries like Namibia and Cape Verde. For the first time, a journalist is assassinated, and a member of parliament exposes him to harm. Ah, that's his face. You think he thinks he's undercover. This is how he looks at. This is where he stays. Anybody who attacks him can come for reward. And a few days after, he is gunned down. As we speak, his assassins have not been apprehended. We saw what happened to Manasseh Azuri Awuni when he did that documentary on the DI group. Media Foundation for West Africa reports that they had to whisk him out of the country for safekeeping in South Africa because his life was under threat. Edward Adeti, who refused to receive bribe from Mr. Bukari Roxen, Minister of State, and expose complicity in the Galamsey fight, which was becoming a sham. We have seen what happened to Edward Adeti. And there are many journalists. The recent Afro Barometer reveals that increasingly there is a certain culture of intimidation where journalists are not free to go about their profession. We have seen what is happening to civil society organizations. And I want to end with what is happening even in Parliament. One will have thought that Parliament, the third arm of government, will have been free from these machinations. Look at the embarrassing spectacle last week. We are all speaking against stigmatizing those who test positive for COVID-19. We are all saying that contracting COVID-19 is not akin to death sentence. It's not a death sentence. That they deserve our care, our love, our attention. We should be there for them. When they recover, let's accept them back home, into our communities, into our workplaces. Let's show them love. Members of Parliament and staff are tested. A journalist gets the scoop that 2 MPs have contracted the virus and 13 staff. All hell breaks loose. The head of the Public Affairs Directorate is asked to issue a statement that the journalist couldn't have known. The department doesn't know. So if you don't know, what are you denying? I mean, I, as a member of Parliament, I was so embarrassed when I read that statement. That is why I issued my own statement that, look, we should be offering a better example. We should be offering a better example. What is wrong if 2 MPs, and here I want to salute my leader, Chief Whip, Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, who said, hey, look, let's stop it. We are in leadership. We all know the facts. Stop lying to the people of Ghana. We can't say that we are opposed to stigmatization. In any case, look, 275 MPs, we are all over the place. As Member of Parliament, I'm all over the place. What is wrong? Are we better than Boris Johnson, who tested positive and revealed it? The Canadian First Lady, the Australian Minister for Home Affairs, the Health Secretary of the UK. I mean, what's the big deal? The Iranian members of Parliament who had it and it was known. Of course, if they hadn't owned up, about 8 of them died, so people will have found out anyway. Now, my main worry really with the unworthy example that Parliament provides in this scenario, it's not even about disclosing who. Many people have misunderstood some of us who have been critical of Parliament. It's not about naming the persons. That one, your medical confidentiality is up to you. You decide if you want to be a good example so that you fight stigma and all of that. You want your constituents to know, you know, and the people should know. And I think that is a great example. That is not the issue. If indeed 2 people, and there are even more, have it, you state it, you be truthful, and then you follow the protocols. Is it because a certain CI related to the elections must mature? We are counting the 21 days. So if we own up that members of Parliament and staff have coronavirus, we'll have to shut down Parliament. Because that's the protocol. Parliament must be shut down. The place must be fully fumigated and disinfected. We must all go into isolation, 14 days. contact tracing must begin. So nobody wants to disturb. It's all about political power. So we are risking our lives. And this is a place that our constituents visit. Even if we politicians, we don't value our lives anymore, and we all want to commit mass murder, which so some people wouldn't mourn too much when that happens. How about the journalists, the press corps? How about the staff of parliament? How about all these our constituents who call upon us in the house? How about that? How about that? So it's not about we insisting that those two should be named. That's not the issue. It's about the institution of parliament acting with dignity, being credible, being truthful, valuing lives, placing lives ahead of political interests and political machinations, so that the place is disinfected, and then we can return and we can protect human lives. So anything just for political power, and it's all about elections. It's all about elections, and I get deeply worried about that. And increasingly you see that members of parliament are being gagged. When a member of parliament has been critical, writes to the speaker, so when he gets up he won't be called. You saw what happened the last time at the vetting, when I sought to probe Justice Clemens Onyanuga, probing based on evidence. I had transcribed his own statements, had video evidence, juxtaposing that with the code of conduct for judges. Very fair question. I didn't attack him. I have a lot of respect. He's a paramount chief in my region. Why will I attack him? Fair question. This is your code of conduct. Particularly Rule 6. No judge should endorse any political office holder. The rule is clear. I asked this question, and I am abruptly ruled out of order. I asked why, and they said, you can't be told why. I have ruled you out of order. I'm the chairman. In parliament, where we must be protecting the right to free expression, the right to free speech. So this topic is a very, very important one. And as we inch closer to the December 7, 2020 elections, we must all be on the lookout about these tendencies. Because you see, history teaches us that dictators don't just emerge overnight. Countries don't just realize that they have a dictator on their heads. Hitler didn't start as a Hitler we now know. Mussolini didn't start as a Mussolini we now know. All of them, all those bad leaders, is always testing. So we're testing with journalists, and their colleague journalists are quiet. Civil society is quiet. Okay, yeah, good. We are getting it. Yeah, we are going. Auditor General. Then other public servants, civil servants like the Auditor General will be mindful not to speak up. Then now public universities bill. They are doing it in parliament. Ghanaians cannot even know the truth about what happened. That is how. And now laws are setting in. They have the majority in parliament. And the public universities bill might just be passed because they have the majority. That is how. It's chipping away, bit by bit, eroding the gains. So all of us, as I conclude, must become vanguards to be alert to these tendencies. We must speak out. We must mobilize. Too many of us have become so comfortable and we think we can let go from Manyame and all of that. We are not really, we don't seem to care because, oh, it's somebody else. But as that German priest, Nemula, said, when they came for the communists, I couldn't be bothered because I'm not a communist. When they came for the socialists, I couldn't be bothered because I'm not a socialist. When they came for the trade unionists, I couldn't be bothered because I'm not a unionist. I'm not a unionized worker. I couldn't be bothered. They came for the Jews. I'm not a Jew, so I can't be bothered. Eventually, when they come for you, nobody will be there to save you. So we must all rise up and protect the rights that the likes of Comrade Kwesi Pratt and others have toiled to guarantee for us, for it to be enshrined in our Constitution. It's not there because the Constitution gives it to us. As I've told you, it's inalienable, God-given. We're born with it. But we must be reminded, it must be protected. And all of us must protect those rights. I thank you very much.
Well, viewers and studio audience, one thing is becoming very clear. Anytime we bring the politicians into the studio, we run out of time. And today we are really running out of time, and we're going to have to make things very, very fast and so on. It is now time to allow those of you at home to join us in this conversation. And we're going to start, first of all, with our WhatsApp platform. And it's beaming. The messages are pouring in. So we're going to read a few of the messages. We can't read all of them. And after that, we shall invite our guest, the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, to react very, very briefly to them. And then we shall take some contributions from the studio audience. So here we go. And the first message simply says, good evening, Pan-African Television. When can Ghana, my country, become that society where all forms of discrimination, inequalities, and violence are absent, and the society is built on the foundations of cooperation, harmony, tolerance, and respect? What do you see today, if not parochialism, power drunkenness, and marginalization? A. Ghana, Nkrumah's Ghana. And this is from Francis Ahiano Ahovi from Oyibi. Francis Ahiano Ahovi from Oyibi. This one says that, good evening, Mr. Pratt and your guest, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. I'm Fred Doku from La. Just saw on social media the article below. The Criminal Investigations Department, CID of the Ghana Police Service, has invited the head of news of Angel 102.9, Kofi Aduma, very angry, and are demanding answers to why the MPP always refers to us as Togolese and always blames the bloating of the voters' register on us. And what are you, the leaders of the region in Parliament, doing about it? And it's from Ameshi Dixon from Ho. Ameshi Dixon from Ho. This one says, Honorable, you are really a man of positive thinking. We are proud of you as Ghanaians. This is Dubek Gideon, reaching you from Tamale. Dubek Gideon, reaching you from Tamale. This is from Tegbe in Keta. It says, Mona from Tegbe, Keta. So, why has the passport office halted new applications and renewals if that is a primary document Greetings to my hero, the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa. This one says, in fact, the EC and the NIA and the sitting governments are trying to rig and destroy the democracy of our beloved country, Ghana, but we will not allow them in any way to let our country be in chaos. And this is from Pepsi Rexford, from Tegbe Keta, Pepsi Rexford, from Tegbe Keta.
It's Tegbe.
Tegbe Keta. SSNto. And then this one says, good evening, Pan-African Television. May God bless you for the great works. Theophilus from Bolgatanga. This one says, good evening, sir. Inform Honorable Ablakwa that there's a young boy from Northeast region who has come to Accra searching for him for almost a week and hasn't gotten away to find him yet. And the person gives the number. Wow. Young boy from Northeast. So many messages. This one is a strange one. And this one says, I understand and agree to the fact that most pastors have turned down the easing of restrictions on social gathering. I'm sure they've also understood that the easing of restrictions was not meant for them. Oh, this one. How does this one fit in? This one says that thank you for organizing this program, and my name is Kwame Boyka. Kwame Boyka does not indicate where he's sending the message from. Oh, please don't call the number. Please don't. Please, you are messing us up. Don't call the number. You know, this is the problem. Now I have to go all over. This is from Kwame Boyka. I've read that already. And then this one says, good evening, Mr. Pratt and your guest, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and Fred Doku from La. Just saw on social media, I think I've read this one already, the telephone call has just disorganized the messages. This one says, I am Kweku. Tell Honorable Ablakwa that both NDC and NPP would not win the 2020 election. Now Ghanaian citizens have their eyes wide open, and we the youth and most of the citizens don't have work to do. Meanwhile, Jerry John Rawlings sold our companies here in Ghana to some of you, the leaders in this country, and even his wife. How can you sell state property to your wife? But let them know that God is looking at them. Ghana Union Movement will win the 2020 elections. We don't want to hear lies again from the two parties. Wow. This one says, good evening. I am very much enjoying the education by Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, and that we, the youth of the Volta region, are very, very angry at the attempt to blame us for everything that goes wrong with the elections. This says, Guy, I want to know whether a new register has been compiled, whereby the old one did not elect the incumbent government. And this from Okain from Hebron. Okain from Hebron, I'm finding it difficult to understand your message, but perhaps Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa can. The person who is messing us up is still busily calling this line and messing up the messages, making it very, very difficult to read the messages. Please stop calling the line. Wow, this is a message, and I'm going to read it as it is. Good evening, Mr. Pilat. Good evening, Honorable Ablakwa. Mr. Platt, where is the CJ? Why are we not hearing from them again? And it's from Mandela from Moshi Zongo. Mandela from Moshi Zongo. Mandela, thanks for my new name. And so many messages. This one says, I am Jude Terry from Takrady. Oh my goodness. Same number. One telephone number is messing us up big time, you know. I don't know. So this one says, I'm Jude Terry from Takrady, Kodokro. Good evening, Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and my fellow comrades. Honorable Ablakwa, may the Almighty God bless you and grant you his divine wisdom, grace, favor, mercy, strength, good health for your education. Hey, all the blessings are moving in one direction. Yes, Christo.
I'll share some.
This one is too much. All the blessings for one person, man. Anyway, so these are some of the messages. The guy who is ringing is still messing us up and making it very difficult to read the messages. So we're going to call on our honored guest, Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, to respond if there are any responses to some of these messages. But it must be very, very brief because we are really struggling for time. And then after that, we shall take 4 or 3 comments and questions from the studio audience. Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa.
Let me thank sincerely all our contributors. This shows that this program is watched all over the country and is keenly followed by the good people of our country. A lot of the comments here I have noted are generally comments that do not require my response, especially the one from Francis Ahianyo Ahovi on discrimination, when we shall end all forms of discrimination. And that is why programs like this are very important. It's a constant struggle, and we must always make sure that we prevent. And I like the metaphor of that police officer shoving his knee on Mr. Floyd. There are so many of our people who are being choked to death by the knee of oppression, the knee of poverty, the knee of deliberate misinformation, the knee of racism, of discrimination, the knee of corruption, nepotism, bad leadership that holds down our people and chokes them to death. A few days ago, we heard what happened on the Volta Lake. Children should not be dying on the Volta Lake in this day and age. Why can't we protect our children? Why can't we create opportunities for the poor, for the downtrodden? So let that whole very shocking and I know outrageous footage which we are all pondering over, let's ponder deeply and let's resolve that out of this we shall build a fair and just society for all our people. Amusi Dixon in Ho is worried about the discrimination against the Volta region. And this is what we have been talking about. He says the youth in the Volta region are very angry because they are called Togolese. Any suspected bloating of the register must be my people. Voltarians. We recall how a running mate of a party who is now vice president said that they've discovered a lot of Togolese on the register. We are waiting for the evidence. At the time, we were told only 10% was being put out. up to now, the 90% has not been, and even that 10%, we are yet to know who those Togolese are. So we must guard against these things. It's dangerous. And that is what is feeding into secession movements that are emerging. That, okay, we want to build our own country. You don't recognize us. You don't think we belong. So I have been consistent in condemning secessionist activities. I am for a unitary republic, as the Osagifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah worked for. But as we advise the mouse, we must also advise the cat. And I hope that all those who keep pointing fingers at the Volta region, pointing fingers at Ketu South, what has Ketu South done? That their numbers is not understood. And yet nobody presents any credible evidence that there are ghosts or people who are not Ghanaians on the register. And you see, the sad thing as a political activist is that, to me, these are not the things we should be fighting over. Our opponent's stronghold is not the enemy. The enemy is poverty. The enemy is unemployment. The enemy is an economy which is crashing, which cannot even pay salaries, which cannot even guarantee benefits that have been produced. When I went for my COVID-19 test in Parliament, those who were testing me said, "Honorable, speak out for us." The allowances we were promised since the president's speech, we have not been paid. So speak out for us. Those are the issues that we should confront. Neo-colonialism, our resources not in our own hands, but in the hands of foreigners who are taking us for a ride. Those are the things we should fight, not opponents' strongholds. That's not the issue. I am shocked, my brothers and sisters, that as we speak, we should have been doing a census this year, the 2020 Housing and Population Census. That census will tell us how many unemployed people, where our people live, so that we can plan, so that we can develop our society. The Ghana Statistical Service, which conducts the census, they struggled the whole year. They couldn't raise funds from government. Then COVID-19 happened. They have had to postpone the census. You don't hear any of our politicians, particularly in government, complain about that, raise concerns about that. So all this fight over political power, you win the political power without data to fashion out scientific solutions to the challenges that confront your people. So is it just power for power's sake, or is power to transform the country? So these are the things we must reflect over. The young boy looking for me from Northeast, I would look for the number after here, and I'll call him. I think that the last matter I'll respond to is from Mandela. Where is the CJA? We did indicate what our mission was at the time. We were opposed to the rising cost of living, and we were deeply affronted by how petroleum prices were being fixed and being imposed on ordinary Ghanaians, and the hardship that was associated with that era. Now, I did make the point that free expression, free speech, free association does not belong to only a select few, some divine people or some elite or some special group. It belongs to all of us. Before CJA, there were many, many groups. There was the Movement for Freedom and Justice. There were so many groups. And we expect many more groups to emerge, to take up various issues, take up various causes. So when some people in this country seek to create the impression that as for some particular group of people, they must be permanent agitators and they only should be seen or heard, then we bastardize the whole. We don't understand what it means about building a nation and being activists and taking up causes. So even if the CJA is not active today, what stops you, Mandela, and others, if there are some other matters that you are passionate about, that you believe must be fixed, must be corrected? Please, it's not only Comrade Pratt. Even if he lives for 150 years, one day he will be using a walking stick and will be too tired to hit the streets. He will be struggling to walk. So it is a collective struggle, and we must all get involved. Let's not create the impression that some should always be sitting at home or be in their comfort zones, and then only a few must take up the struggle. We will not succeed that way. Thank you very much.
Oh, we have very little time. We have 8 minutes, and I'm wondering how we're going to spend the 8 minutes. So those of you who can talk for 1 minute, raise your hands. So we'll have the 4 of you talk for 1 minute each, and then 5. I see 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and 5. Dinah is also there. So you're going to talk for 1 minute each, and after that, the Honorable Member of Parliament will speak for 2 minutes. So we start with you, and then we come to you, and then we go to you, and then we come to you and you. 1 minute each.
Yeah, 1 minute is. Okay, thank you. A quick one. First of all, any political student of politics would have seen what we are seeing today coming, right from 2015 thereabout, where the NPP didn't mince words. They made it clear they were going to change the EC. They've done it. When they came in first 1 year, we saw the very place that's supposed to protect the rights, fundamental rights of people, individuals within this country, which is the courtroom. They marched in there. I mean, vagabonds within this party walked in there and messed up a courtroom such that people ran out. I mean, one thing after another, they've made these things clear. So what we want to be hearing now is, what is the opposition party, what's the opposition party doing, or opposition coalition doing to stop this from going beyond this point into 2020 election, rather than telling us what the problems are? Thank you.
Next minute.
Okay, comrades, mine is a comment and it's straight to the state machinery. The problem is our state machinery that we have now currently was built on a colonial structure. Both the police and the soldiers, they were brought from Kaduna State and somewhere from Nigeria, Sokoto, Kano, and they brought in 800 people, which were divided into two. One side was for police, one side was for the military, and it was still based on the colonial structure, and up to now it's still based on the colonial structure. And to me, whatever the state machinery does, they just take orders without thinking. To me, yeah, they work as if they are dogs in uniform. But to be frank, we don't need such a state machinery in this country. We need to dissolve the state machinery and recreate a new state machinery whereby every child who completes SHS will go straight to the training school, whereby every indigenous Ghanaian will be a state machinery. We don't need informants in this country. It is informants which this guy, Kennedy Japan, is using to destroy this beautiful nation. Because right now, Kennedy Japan is buying information as if it's not, he said it's not there. So, Ghanaians, we should recreate. We should recreate our system. The system is not benefiting. We need a strong state. We need a strong state machinery. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades. Please, my question is, currently we've been seeing the repressive state apparatus as they have been in display from when the law students was even asking about their exams results at Ayawasu, and few individuals who have expressed their views on national issues. How are we going to awaken the social consciousness of the masses or the people to rise and know and realize that the power belongs to the people but not the people in power, so that they can continue their struggle? Thank you.
1 minute.
Yeah. Good evening, comrades. Mine is an observation that the separation of the people started with the closure of radio stations that are a medium for the expression of freedom of speech and the liberties of people. So what is happening to Radio Gold and other radio stations that have been shut down? That is my question. What can we do to bring them back? Thank you.
Last 1 minute.
Thank you very much. And now I would want us to sum up these two issues that are confronting us now. The issue of the voters register and the abuse of public office. If we are to cast our minds back, you see, the NPP did a dress rehearsal in their own party. If you look at how Charlotte Osei was dismissed, just go back and look at how Afoko, Krap, and Kwabene Japan were dismissed. And then you look at how Akufo-Addo and his internal machinery took hold of their internal register, the register they use for their internal elections. It explains why even when he lost in 2012 and took some tea time off in the name of some court whatever petition, he still won. He won simply because he managed to own their internal register, and that is what he seeks to replicate. These are fascist regimes and they are coming in big scale. I mean, clearly well, basically that is just it. And so for those of you who are surprised, I'm rather surprised at you. Thank you.
Well, look, we've seriously run out of time, and brevity, we are now going to test the Honorable MP for brevity. He has 1.5 minutes to round up. Just 1.5 minutes to round up.
One and a half minutes. What I must say is that I am impressed with your contributions. It is clear that we have understood each other. You have raised very important issues that we must continue to ponder over, and let this discussion continue. My dear sister, what can we do to awaken our consciousness, as you ask? Forums such as this, let us all get to the ground. Let's mobilize our people. Radio Gold will be open. The oppressors, bullies, don't like to be confronted. Once we stand up to them, they will change course, and we shall be free and free forever. I thank you very much.
Well, all too soon we've come to the end of another exciting edition of Wednesday Palaver. And we'd like to thank all of you who came to the studio audience, for your participation. We hope that next week we shall get all of you back in the studio. And for those of you at home who want to join us, please, our doors are open. We are exceedingly grateful to the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, Member of Parliament for North Tongu, ranking member, Committee of Foreign Affairs of the Parliament of Ghana, and especially for those of you at home who made it possible. On behalf of our producers, Loretta and Roseanne, and the director of the show, Adam Lumo, the cameraman, everybody at Pan-African Television would like to say goodbye and see you again very soon. Bye-bye.